Hello and welcome to Hot and Heavy, the Elaine podcast. I'm your host, Shivani Desai. Today I'll be talking about Season 9, Episode 16, The Burning. Hello everyone. I hope everyone's doing well. I'm doing okay. Not gonna lie, this week has been not easy. If you've listened to this podcast before, I think you can guess why. We just switched over administrations and I'm just sort of in a state of disbelief that we're back. We've moved backwards and we're continuing to move backwards. But instead of harping on that, because, politics is so fun to talk about. Nope. In the spirit of just distracting ourselves, if you need the distraction, let's go ahead and get into this episode. The synopsis for The Burning is as follows. Kramer and Mickey take work feigning ailments for medical students. George becomes obsessed with leaving the Kruger boardroom on a high note. Elaine discovers Puddy not only listens to Christian radio stations, but also thinks she's going to hell. While impersonating someone else on the phone to his girlfriend, Jerry learns of a cryptic story that she has been withholding from him. This episode was written by Jennifer Crittenton. Yes, a female writer. You know I love that. All right, we start out the episode in Puddy's car. Elaine is borrowing it. She's in the driver's seat and Puddy's at the window. He's telling her to be careful and to not move the seat. It's right where he likes it. And she's, of course, annoyed. And she's like, okay, goodbye. 10 and 2, babe, he says. And then finally tells her not to peel out. I won't, she says. And of course, she peels right out of that spot. She turns on the radio and we hear a song about Jesus being one and all. And she switches the station and hears a sermon, changes it again, and we hear a chorus of amen. And the next 3 stations all reveal the same religious content. Elaine turns the radio off and says quizzically, Jesus? My take, Puddy is back. Love that we get an Elaine Puddy scene to start the episode. Nothing has changed. Elaine is immediately annoyed at his very simple requests while she borrows his car. Although, how the hell would she be able to drive with this seat in Puddy's settings? I mean, she wouldn't even be able to reach the pedals, which I never really understood. We get the reveal of her plot here with the Christian rock presets on the radio. And the delivery of that final line of Jesus, it's so clever and brilliant. And the intonation is so important here because if it's delivered with exasperation or anger, it's actually not allowed. It's considered by the FCC as an expletive. So this is just, I always marvel at this because it's so brilliant. It's presented as a question. She's just like, Jesus? It's in a question type tone, but there's also like an undertone of irritation a little bit. And like I said, this is just something I marvel at. I've always admired the writing and acting of that moment. All right, next we're in the Kruger offices. Kruger is telling the staff that Kruger Industrial Smoothing is heading into the red or black, whatever the bad one is. Any thoughts? George makes a suggestion, citing that when he's been a little strapped for cash, he'll drop off his rent check having, quote unquote, forgotten to sign it. That could buy us some time. Well, works for me, Kruger says, and praises George. And he gets some pats on the back from his coworkers, and he's really having a moment. And so kind of emboldened by this moment, George then suggests maybe we answer the phone call for the money, pretending that we're the cleaning service and that we don't speak English. And no here, Kruger. Well, this doesn't go over so well. Kruger just glares at him. Are you done? Ooh, that was bad, says another colleague. Next, we're in Monks. George tells Jerry how he lost them after his good comment. He got lost in gaffes and puns after that. Jerry explains about showmanship, how you got to leave on a high note. George is like, well, I can't just leave. Well, that's how they do it in Vegas. You've never played Vegas. I hear things. Elaine comes in hot with some news. She says, here's one. I borrowed Puddy's car and all the presets on the radio were Christian rock stations. Well, George likes Christian rock. It's very positive, unlike those real musicians who think they're so cool and hip. What? Elaine asks Jerry if he thinks Puddy actually believes in something. Jerry points out how it's a used car. He probably didn't change the presets. Yes, Elaine says, he is lazy. Plus, he probably doesn't even know how to do it. Yes, he is dumb. So you prefer dumb and lazy to religious? Dumb and lazy, I understand, Elaine says. George suggests reprogramming the buttons and see if he changes them back. Do the old switcheroo. Jerry corrects George. Switcheroo isn't the right term. That's when you poison a drink and then you switch it with the other person. George says, no, it's doing the same thing to someone that they did to you. Oh, Elaine's going to do to Puddy's radio what it did to her. George gets so mad. Well, that's the gist of it. Quiet, Elaine says. Elaine asks Jerry about his new girlfriend. So where's this Sophie? Oh, she'll be here in a few minutes. And she asks how long he's been seeing this one. I don't know, since the last one. Sophie walks in and Jerry asks if they'd like to meet her. And both George and Elaine are like, nah. Jerry exits. And George asks Elaine how Puddy got back in the picture. She says, oh, well, I needed to move a bureau. So the actress in this scene who plays Sophie is Cindy Ambule. She's appeared in Jag, Bold and the Beautiful, Charmed, and many other shows. I have to say, she's kind of meh for me. I've always been bothered by how overly made up she is. She has way too much makeup on. She looks like a Barbie doll. I didn't care for the look, and she's just really not my favorite of Jerry's girlfriends. My take on this scene, I really want to start conversations from now on saying, here's one. It's so great. I love how she comes in with that energy. And the energy throughout the scene is great. She's on a mission to discuss this issue about Puddy, and the discussion does not disappoint. That line, dumb and lazy, I understand. I mean, it could not be better. Now, you all might remember in the past, Elaine has dated a religious guy before. Jerry points it out, the religious guy. And she's dating him when she has the nip slip on her Christmas card. And she does mention sending the card to a Father Chelios. So anyway, I don't think this is an error in continuity regarding the Elaine character, but rather I just think Elaine's evolved to being so cynical and she's disengaged from whatever religious beliefs or ties to religion she had in her past. And I gotta say, I'm with Elaine here. I couldn't really date a super religious guy in my experience. I've never met now I'm talking someone who's like would listen to Christian rock, all 6 presets, very religious. I just never met one who also possessed other aspects of what I find attractive. It's just not my thing. It's sort of a buzzkill for me. And I'm talking all religions. I'm not discriminating which religion is what, but yeah, if that's a big part of your life, chances are we're not going to connect on much else. But hey, that's me. I have to mention George's reactions to everything here. I love the unexpected responses. Who would have thought George loves Christian rock? What? And that little spat with Jerry about the switcheroo is hilarious. It's so petty. It goes from 0 to 100 in a second. And Elaine has to swoop in like a mom telling them to be quiet. Love this dynamic between the three of them. The total disinterest in meeting Sophie, it's small, but it just says so much. George and Elaine know it's not necessary to meet any of Jerry's girlfriends since they'll be gone within a week, guaranteed. It's kind of related to Elaine's vibe last week when she introduces Daryl to the guys, these are people I know. So it's not so much that her boyfriend will be gone in a week, but maybe just deep down, Elaine hopes Jerry and George will be gone soon. It's not worth an introduction. I mean, Elaine says at one point, I've been trying to leave this group for years. Once again, and they've stayed consistent with this the last couple episodes, kind of explaining where Puddy is in the picture. He doesn't return her calls, answering machine is broken, whatever. So it's always been explained, where is Puddy when she's dating another guy? And so this detail is great too. So how do you get back in the picture? Basically, she had something heavy she needed to move. All right, next we're in Jerry's apartment. Kramer and Mickey enter asking if Jerry has any pepper. Try the pepper shaker. Kramer proceeds to snort the pepper and sneezes violently, and he tells Mickey, it should sound more like that. Mickey fake sneezes, and it's laughably unconvincing. Jerry's like, what's going on? Why all the fake sneezing? And turns out that they are acting like they have diseases so medical students can diagnose them at Mount Sinai. And then they both start retching very loudly. They want to practice that. It's the same rhythm as Jerry's phone ringing. I just love that. It's so dumb. But the fact that they're retching while the phone rings. And Jerry's like, would you get out of here with that? Kramer and Mickey exit while acting out DTs, which are delirium tetrums or something. I looked it up. I didn't care enough to write it down. But basically, it's like when you're in withdrawals, it's all different types of things, hallucinations, seizures, shakes, all that stuff. So that's what they're acting out as they exit. Jerry answers the phone and it's Sophie, but she doesn't say it's Sophie. She just says, hey, Jerry, it's me. And so Jerry's like, oh, hey, Elaine. No, it's me. George? Sophie's a bit hurt that Jerry doesn't know the sound of her voice. And he covers by saying that, oh, yeah, I knew it was you. I was joking. I'm a comedian. Kramer rushes in asking if Jerry has any ipecac because Mickey swallowed 12 aspirin. Did he overdose? No, it's just too much. All right, next we're in the Kruger offices. More bad news for Kruger Industrial Smoothing. The statue in Lafayette Park now has a head the size of a softball due to over-smoothing it, and that spells trouble. George says, well, maybe you should just smooth it down to nothing, stick a pumpkin under its arm, and change the nameplate to Ichabod Crane. Everyone loves this, and the room erupts in laughter. George looks around and says, all right, that's it for me, and he exits on a high note. Next, we're in a hospital. The doctor is handing out envelopes containing diseases and symptoms to all the actors. Mickey is so excited because he got the jackpot, bacterial meningitis. Kramer, on the other hand, got gonorrhea. He asks Mickey if he wants to trade, and Mickey does not want to. Bacterial meningitis is like the Hamlet of diseases. It's got everything. Kramer turns to another guy and asks him if he wants to trade, and that guy got, the surgeon left a sponge in me. Kramer's like, oh, okay, well, good luck with that. The actress here playing the doctor handing out the diseases is Ursuline Bryant. She's also appeared in the Red Fox show, Star Trek The Next Generation, Doogie Howser MD, among others. And I like her presence and her interaction with Kramer in this episode. Really solid performance. All right, next we're in Jerry's apartment. George and Jerry are enjoying some easy cheese and Ritz crackers, and George tells him how he left on his high note and spent the rest of the afternoon seeing Titanic. And he confirms with Jerry that old lady in the movie, she's just a liar, right? And a bit of a tramp, if you ask me. Oh, shut up, Jerry. You wouldn't say that about a man. Oh, it's so funny. I just watched Titanic a couple of weeks ago. My daughter came to me and she was like, I keep hearing it's really good. And I was like, I will watch Titanic any day of the week. Let's do it. And she loved it. Anyway, back to the scene. Elaine enters with a cheerful, hello, boys. And she did give the radio the old switcheroo. And the Christian rock was resurrected. She also pried something off his bumper, a Jesus fish. Now, Elaine is really disappointed that Puddy's a spiritual person. You know, she got him because he seemed so one-dimensional, she feels misled. Well, George thinks it's neat. You don't hear that much about God anymore. I hear things, Jerry says. Call back to his, I hear things about Vegas. Jerry tells Elaine how Sophie gave him the "it's me" on the phone. Elaine's a bit shocked. Isn't that a little premature? She's not a me. I'm a me. And George is against all "it's me's." So self-absorbed and egotistical, like those hip musicians with their complicated shoes. These little outbursts about musicians by George, they're so like out of nowhere, but I love them. I absolutely love them. And it's very on track. Like I could totally see George just, his insecurity gets to him when there's like a cool hip musician around. Kramer enters and he announces, well, I got gonorrhea. Elaine and Jerry sort of nod at each other. That seems about right. That's what they gave me. They? George is very suspicious. The government? No, Jerry explains what's going on with the medical students. Kramer is so pissed. It's a waste of his talent. It's just a little burning. And he tells them he's kind of jealous that Mickey got bacterial meningitis. It's way better. George says, well, I guess there are no small diseases, just small actors. And everyone laughs. Well, George sees his high note and he says, all right, that's it for me. And he exits. Elaine's like, what the hell was that? Jerry tells Elaine and Kramer that he's displaying showmanship. He's leaving on a high note. And that inspires Kramer. Yes, showmanship. That's what his gonorrhea needs. Jerry's like, yeah, that's right. You belt that gonorrhea to the back row. Yes, Kramer's inspired now. He will make people feel my gonorrhea and feel the gonorrhea themselves. My take on this scene. So we learn that Puddy switched the stations back. Just more evidence that he may actually believe in God. And of course, the Jesus fish, that's pretty damning as well. Elaine saying that she wanted him to just be one-dimensional. That's just more evidence of desperate Elaine to me. Like she's settling for Puddy. You know, he's the guy. He's just a convenient guy. But she doesn't want him to be anything deep. Like she wants a physical relationship. She's definitely physically attracted to him, but everything else needs to be shallow, and she should be able to get to boss him around. So her expectation of him remaining one-dimensional totally makes sense to me. And also on some level, I don't think Elaine likes that there's a higher being in Puddy's life. You know what I'm saying? Like she doesn't want to compete with God. She's the one that gets to boss him around and tell him what to do. Once again, the surprising response from George about thinking God is neat. It always amuses me. JLD's delivery of, isn't that a little premature? It's so great. It's sort of like jealous, but not romantic jealousy, like friendship jealousy. Like, how dare she? She is not an it's me. The Kramer part of the scene, I absolutely love it. It is so brilliant. I love that opening line. Well, I got gonorrhea. It doesn't even faze Elaine or Jerry. Jerry probably knows what he's talking about. Elaine doesn't know what he's talking about as far as like the medical students thing, but she's still not fazed. She's like, yeah, that seems about right. I did want to tell a little story. So long time ago, I had to audition for this sketch series that was a Fox pilot. It was for Fox TV, and it was this local guy in Michigan. He had gotten some notoriety, videos he had made, and so he kind of had gone viral because of his talents, and he was very young. He was like 21 years old, 22. And anyway, he got offered to do a sketch comedy show on Fox, and he wanted to produce it in Michigan. So anyway, I auditioned for it. I got an audition, and I did a couple scenes from Seinfeld because they were just like, bring like whatever you want to do. Like it was very kind of loosey-goosey. There weren't any sides that, they didn't have anything for us to read, but it was just like, do a comedic monologue, do a scene, whatever you want to do. So I did the scene from the episode where they go to the dinner party, Ring Dings and Pepsi scene, basically. But I also did this one. I played all the parts, but mostly Kramer. I started it out with, well, I got gonorrhea. Then I got cast on the show, and I got to film an entire Fox pilot doing all these different silly characters and really fun sketches. And it never got picked up. So that was a big old bummer. And I don't have access to that footage. That really bums me out too, because it was produced by, Fox, like a major channel. And I will never see it because they own it. So anyway, somewhere there exists me doing some really funny sketches on a very well-produced show that is sitting on a shelf somewhere at the Fox offices. Fox offices, that's hard to say. All right, moving on, we are at the hospital again. Kramer is surrounded by medical students asking about his symptoms. He tells them he's had some burning during urination. Any other pain? Daniel Day Kim, the actor, asks him. I was like, whoa, one of his first roles. And Kramer says, the haunting memories of lost love. May I? He gives Mickey a signal to dim the lights, and Kramer goes into a monologue about a romance he had with a coquettish haberdasher and how he burned for her, much like the burning during urination I would feel soon after. The medical student yells out, gonorrhea! And Kramer confirms, gonorrhea! Everyone applauds, and Kramer takes a bow. All right, next we're in Jerry's apartment. He's playing his answering machine messages. Sophie left one with an "it's me" again. And George is like, she's still doing that? And George tells him, you should do the same to her. Pull the old switcheroo. Jerry calls Sophie, and when she answers, says, hey, it's me. And she thinks it's someone named Rafe. Jerry goes along with it, and then he asks about him. So, how are things going with Jerry? She says how she really likes Jerry, but she hasn't told him about the tractor story yet. Right, the tractor story. Sophie asks Rafe if he's feeling okay because he sounds kind of weird. Uh-oh. Abort! So Jerry says, Yeah, I better get to a doctor, bye. And then he tells George what she said about a tractor story. Whoa, back it up. Beep, beep, beep. Jerry says, beep, beep, beep. What are you doing? And George feels very embarrassed. I do this so regularly because I like to back into a parking spot, not going to lie. I don't know why I had to add the not going to lie part, like you guys care. But I do that every time I said, I'm going to back it up, beep, beep, beep. And it's just, again, the Seinfeld vernacular that's in my everyday life. All right, next we're in Elaine's apartment. Puddy's on the couch in all his man-spreading glory, arms out, legs out. Elaine asks where he wants to eat, and he says, feels like an Arby's night. Elaine nods. Arby's, beef and cheese, and do you believe in God? He says, yes. Oh, so you're pretty religious. Yeah, that's right. Elaine asks Puddy if it bothers him that she's not very religious, and he says, no, not for him. Why not? She wants to know. I'm not the one going to hell, and he walks out. My take, bringing back Puddy's love for Arby's, I mean, it's beyond brilliant. Jennifer Crittenden, it's just, this episode is so well written. There's so many moments that I'll keep pointing out, but just kudos to Jennifer Crittenden. So amazing. Because enough time has passed from that car dealership episode for all of us to forget about Arby's and Puddy, but then we're blessed with feels like an Arby's night. It's just amazing. It's just these callbacks. You feel that in like a really good improv set when something is brought up, something like mildly amusing is brought up in the beginning of the scene. You do like a 20-minute long form scene and then someone brings it back. I mean, the audience just loves it. And this is kind of the same thing. It's been a few episodes, but bringing back Arby's and Puddy, so good, so good. And the way Elaine just nods, like that's exactly what she was expecting. How many times that week have they gone to Arby's? I'm guessing it's been more than twice. This is a very short scene, but it's so hilarious, very effective. I like that she isn't aggressive in her questioning, considering her usual annoyed tone with Puddy. She's genuinely curious why her lack of religious belief doesn't bother him. She's like, why not? I like that she's smiling, but then that's needed to have the juxtaposition of the next reaction when he tells her, well, you're going to hell. Like it basically tells her she's going to hell and then walks out. That reaction from JLD is so great. And that's why she smiles. She's like, this is a nice conversation. I'm just genuinely curious. And then he's just like, boom, drops the bomb. You're going to hell and walks out. Oh my gosh. So well done. All right, next we're in Monks. George and Jerry are trying to figure out this mysterious tractor story. Maybe she stole one. Jerry's like, no one's stealing a tractor. And he says, it's got to be a disfigurement. And George could not, he's like 1,000% sure she lost her thumbs in a tractor accident and they grafted her big toes on. They do it every day. Jerry's like at a loss right now. Why do I seek your counsel? Elaine enters. She says, well, I'm going to hell. Yeah, that seems about right. According to Puddy. And Jerry tries to tell a joke about hell and Elaine cuts him off. I'm not in the mood. Jerry's like, why does this bother you? You don't believe in hell. Yeah, she argues, but he does. So it's more a relationship problem than a final destination of your soul. Well, relationships are very important to me, Elaine says. Maybe you could strike one up with the Prince of Darkness as you burn for all eternity. Elaine just smiles, annoyed at Jerry. My take, I like that they bring back, seems about right. There's a lot of callbacks in this episode, and I love it so much. Speaking of more things I love, I'm not in the mood. Such a great delivery. I just think with someone like Jerry, the jokes and the bits, you got to just cut them off after a certain point if you hang out with them a lot. I think that's what we're seeing here. She's like, stop it. I'm not in the mood. And once again, I'm with Elaine. I get her logic. It's not about going to hell. It's about Puddy believing she's going to go to hell. And once again, very strong writing here. I love the two things being at odds, of caring about where your soul will end up or what your boyfriend thinks. And the response of, well, relationships are very important to me, indicating I don't give a shit where my soul ends up. But this relationship, I care about that. And it makes sense. I mean, these characters don't give a shit about anything deep or spiritual. Elaine just needs a reason to be mad at Puddy and him not caring about her soul. That's it. That's what she's going to be pissed about. All right, next we're in the Kruger offices. George enters the conference room and it's empty except for Mr. Kruger. He tells George that everyone else is off the project. They were boring. And that George is his main man because lately he's just been on and leaving him wanting more. George is pretty intimidated by the project, but Kruger's not too worried about it. Let's get started. Right off the bat, it's clear Kruger is not going to be much help. He shows George his chair trick. He can spin 3 times around with no feet. All me. It's all me. All right, next we're in the hospital. The actors are getting their new disease assignments for the week, and Mickey is pumped. He gets cirrhosis of the liver with jaundice. I get to wear makeup. He's so excited. But Kramer got gonorrhea again. He thinks there must be some mistake, but the doctor says, no, we loved what you did with it. Kramer is not happy. He's being typecast. All right, next we are in Jerry's apartment. Sophie and Jerry are playing chess, and Jerry is trying different ways of bringing up tractors, one of which is just forcefully saying, tractor, at Sophie, which understandably creeps her out. She goes to leave, and on her way out, she drops her purse, and Jerry notices something as she bends down and just nods knowingly. Next, in Monks, we find out what Jerry saw. He said he saw a long scar on her leg where it would dangle while riding on a tractor. She's probably a little self-conscious about it. George isn't sure why she'd be more self-conscious about that than her toe thumbs. She doesn't have toe thumbs. Jerry asks about the project at Kruger, and George says he's doing all the work, and the only reason he got out for a bite today is because Kruger finally promised to do some work. And he turns around and sees Kruger devouring a chocolate cake at one of the booths. He turns to Jerry, says, see what I have to put up with? He goes over and reprimands Kruger, but Kruger isn't too worried about it. Well, George is worried about it, and he begs him to go through some of that stuff he left for him. Okay, and Kruger exits. George goes to get his jacket and laments to Jerry, have you ever seen anything like this? And Jerry says, never, very obviously indicating Kruger is giving full George Costanza with his laziness right now. All right, next we're in Elaine's apartment. Puddy notices they forgot to deliver Elaine's paper, and he asks her to take the neighbor's paper across the hall. But that belongs to Mr. Potato Guy. That's his. Oh, come on, take it. Well, if you want it so bad, you take it. Sorry. Thou shalt not steal. Oh, Elaine sees what he means. Because she's going to hell, it's okay for her to steal. She freaks out. She says, that's it. I can't live like this anymore. Oh, what'd I do? Puddy says, all defeated. She says, David, I'm going to hell. The worst place in the world with all the devils and the caves and the ragged clothing and the heat. My God, the heat. I mean, what do you think about all that? David just responds with, it's going to be rough. She hits him and says, you should be trying to save me. Don't boss me. He says, this is why you're going to hell. Elaine denies this. She is not going to hell. And even if she were, he should care that she's going to hell, even though she is not. As she's walking back to her bedroom, he yells after her, you stole my Jesus fish, didn't you? Yeah, that's right. She does a little devil face, growls with finger horns on her head. My take, this is a classic scene. This scenario for Elaine to hit her breaking point is so well done. And of course, the performances by Patrick Warburton and JLD, it just makes it fly. I love the way he says, what'd I do? Elaine explaining what her experience in hell will be like. I love that she mentions ragged clothing before the heat. Like, Elaine is a fashion queen, right? Like, she's like, the ragged clothing is going to be worse than the heat. Everything about this rant is so well done with JLD. She's mad, yes, but there are moments in the facial expressions that JLD gives where she looks like genuinely hurt. Like, you should care that I'm going to hell. It's a little restrained. She could just completely have the anger come out, but there's restraint there where it's like, yeah, she's angry and annoyed, but I think ultimately deep down she's hurt. And the best part of this scene is the devil face and growl, the finger horns, the tongue flapping. Come on, what is better than that? It's so good. And just have to point out the irony that religious Puddy paints his face like a devil for the hockey game. I know it's just to support the team, but it's still kind of interesting. And also he does a similar face to what Elaine does in this scene when he's scaring the priest in the car. The devils! Ah! Elaine learned it from you, Puddy. Next, we're in the hospital. A yellow-faced Mickey is rehearsing his cirrhosis of the liver routine. Kramer enters with yellow makeup on, and Mickey gets suspicious. He asks him, "You're still doing gonorrhea, right?" "Well, we'll see about that." So Kramer gets called up. "Well, what seems to be bothering you, Mr. Kramer?" He starts a monologue about coming back from Vietnam 20 years earlier, and the only friend he had was the bottle. Mickey yells at Kramer stealing his cirrhosis. He attacks Kramer and pulls him to the ground, and the student diagnoses Kramer with cirrhosis of the liver and Mickey with a PCP addiction. All right, next we're at a church. Elaine and Puddy are meeting with Father Curtis. We've seen him before. They need his help with their religious disparity issue. So Father Curtis kind of breaks it down. Elaine is concerned that Puddy isn't concerned that she's going to hell, and Puddy thinks Elaine is too bossy. Yeah, that's right, they both say in unison. Well, the father explains how many struggles can happen in interfaith marriages. Elaine stops him. Whoa, 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 whoa. No one's getting married here. She tells him we're just, having a good time. Oh, well, in that case, Father Curtis says they're both going to hell. Puddy is so pissed. "No way, this is bogus, man." Elaine is quite pleased and thanks Father Curtis, who starts telling them a hell joke, but Puddy stops him. He's not in the mood because he's going to hell. Again, all this stuff being brought up again, the callbacks, it's so good. Bravo, Jennifer Crittenton. Elaine tells him to lighten up. It'll only feel like an eternity, and she and Father Curtis laugh and laugh while Puddy is so bummed. And then they both do the devil impression at Puddy. Father Curtis's is so funny too. Just that face in general. I know you can't see me, but I just did it really well. And it was really funny. My take on this scene, I love that they brought Father Curtis back. I mean, all the callbacks in this episode, why not bring Father Curtis back as well? This guy is a great actor, and I love this character. The summary of why they need his counsel always cracks me up. The hell issue and Elaine's too bossy. It's just, it's so good. And sweet, sweet vindication for Elaine when Father Curtis drops the bomb that they're both going to hell. She just, she takes such pleasure in this. And this is exactly how Elaine would react. She doesn't give a shit that he's going to hell either, but just loves how upset this makes him. It's probably better than what she expected, right? Like, I don't think she expected that at all. And she's like, yeah, okay, good. Now I'm not going to give a shit because you know what? I don't even believe in it. And okay, I'm gonna relate this to certain situations happening right now. It speaks to how religious people love to pay attention to certain parts of the Bible that are convenient for them. It just is like, it resonates so much right now. When Father Curtis and Elaine start laughing at Puddy, it's just a fantastic way to resolve this plot, and such a bonus when Father Curtis does the devil face as well. It's just so good. I also love the line, "No way, this is bogus, man." Puddy's so pissed. And also, shout out to the 8-ball jacket. It's bad. He's still wearing it. And of course he is. Why wouldn't he? So yeah, I love this scene. No notes. This scene is 10 out of 10. All right, next we're in Jerry's apartment. Sophie is starting to tell Jerry the tractor story, and she's very nervous. He reassures her that he knows about the tractor story and he's fine with it. And he tells her it won't let it get in the way of what could be a long-term, meaningful relationship. And you can tell Sophie is relieved and touched. Kramer and Mickey enter. They're in the middle of an argument. Mickey is yelling at Kramer, "You gave me gonorrhea and didn't tell me." "Well, I'm sorry," Kramer says. "I gave it to you because I thought you'd have fun with it." Jerry is so pissed that they just barged in. "Oh, hello," Kramer says to Sophie. And she tells Kramer no, she understands. This can be a tough thing to deal with, and that the important thing is you have a partner who's supportive, and she grabs Jerry's hand. Kramer looks at Mickey. She's right. And Sophie says, "But I didn't have a partner. I got gonorrhea from a tractor." "What?" Jerry's like, "What? You call that the tractor story?" Kramer says, you can't get it from a tractor." "But I did. My boyfriend said I got gonorrhea from riding a tractor in my bathing suit." Okay, that's it for Jerry. He lets go of her hand. That's his high note to leave on. Good night, everybody. The tag to the episode is in the Kruger offices. George is exhausted and frustrated, papers all over the place, while Kruger is just throwing and bouncing a ball against the wall. He's not doing any work. And George explodes. Would you mind helping me out with some of this stuff? You seem to have a good handle on it. No, I don't. George doesn't understand how he doesn't care. I mean, it's your name on the building, which, by the way, the R fell off, and now it just says K. Uger. Well, this amuses Kruger. It sounds like an old car horn. K. Uger. Oh, you are too much, George says. Well, Kruger thinks that's a high note and leaves. Okay, I'm going to take a quick break, and I will see you on the other side. Did you know that 100% of reproductive decisions that do not directly involve you or a loved one has zero effect on your life? Studies show that 100% of private decisions made between doctors and patients who you don't know or never will know make zero impact on your day-to-day life. Studies show that 100% of those who want to control the reproductive rights of women would never dream of doing the same for men. Unfortunately, the hypocrisy is strong in the United States, and it's only getting worse and more emboldened as pathetic, insecure dudes take over our rights. This week, access to the government website for reproductive resources was taken down. I believe it was some pasty-faced loser who has never seen a real-life vagina, much less come in one, cackled as he scrubbed the website, making it null and void, like his penis. If you find yourself in need of reproductive resources, there are a few sites that can help. The Center of Reproductive Rights at reproductiverights.org, WRAP, Women's Reproductive Rights Assistance Project at wrrap.org, and of course, Planned Parenthood at plannedparenthood.org. Get the government out of my fucking snatch. And we're back. There weren't any extras of note, so let's move on to Greg's Sack Lunch. Greg is our most dedicated contributor, and every week he sends us a sack full of his thoughts. This week, he says, in his overall thoughts, I love this episode. Elaine gets a hilarious premise with Puddy and her new revelation that he's very religious. George also gets some great stuff trying to go out on a high. Even Kramer gets a good bit with Mickey. I laughed a lot in this rewatch. Agreed. This is such a strong episode. I am totally on the same page as you, Greg. Next in Greg's sack are his favorite scenes and Elaine moments. He says, the opening of Elaine borrowing Puddy's car is hilarious. I love the different things playing as she's changing the stations and her facial reaction to each one. I also love the scene at the diner when she's explaining all this to Jerry and George and she says, he is lazy and he is dumb. I know. It's all great. And it's like right off the bat, there's not a lot of exposition, right? Not a lot is said, but we're seeing what her dilemma is with all the religious content he's listening to and just, Jesus. Next, Greg says, the back and forth where Elaine explains that Puddy should care that she's going to hell, and Puddy says, you stole my Jesus fish. And Elaine goes, that's right, and does the devil noise. That is one of my favorite moments of the whole series. Hands down, Greg. Yes, that is why they show it in all the montages, the funniest moments on Seinfeld. I mean, it is perfection. Greg goes on to say, the voice Jerry uses as Rafe cracks me up every time. I had totally forgotten about this story with Sophie, and while it's sort of the weakest thing happening, it's worth it just for that moment. I agree. What is that voice? What is it? I love it, but oh my God. It reminds me, for you Office fans out there, when Michael is preparing to negotiate with the Daryl character, and one of the tips he finds on Wikipedia for negotiation is to speak in a mumbly voice, and he's like, and Daryl's like, what? I can't understand you. I think that was Rafe. He was channeling Rafe. Next in Greg's sack is his scene swap idea. He says Jerry's stuff with Sophie is easiest to remove here. Fortunately, it's given the least time of the 4. I'd just trade this for more of any of the other 3 stories, mostly Elaine and Puddy, since that's the funniest and could have been played up even more. Yeah, I kind of get into this in my final notes. Yeah, the Jerry Sophie thing, I don't think it's great. Yeah, I would have loved to see more examples of how Puddy's religious beliefs start ruining Elaine's life. Like that would have been just maybe another scene of that, and then maybe another scene of George with Kruger, because I love Kruger. So yes, I agree. We could have done away with the Sophie stuff altogether. Just give Jerry some role in all of these. And finally, in Greg's sack are his other thoughts. He says, I love Kruger. Something about this actor and his portrayal of a boss that really doesn't give a shit is just so well done. I wish he had been there for the entire damn series. I'm also glad we got a Mickey episode instead of a Newman one. I'm realizing more and more that I prefer Mickey. Same. Totally same. And I feel bad saying that. And it's weird that I feel bad. Like, any of these people care, because Newman is such a great character and Wayne Knight is such a fabulous actor. But I don't know. In this rewatch, I just find myself getting bored with the Kramer and Newman plots. I find them to be a little tedious. But the Mickey stuff, yeah, I love it every time. I never get tired of it. I find it all so funny. And yes, totally, I just said it. I love Kruger too. And it was funny, the commentary for this episode involved Jason Alexander, JLD, Patrick Warburton, and Andy Ackerman. And as soon as Kruger came on, I mean, they were all just saying how lucky they were to get this guy. And actually his appearance kind of spurred this discussion of how fortunate they were to get such brilliant character actors. And they also mention, I'm not gonna remember his name, but the actor who plays Mickey, Danny Woodburn, he deserves me to say his name. They were just saying how, gosh, they really hit the jackpot with these character actors who would come in and out, for just one episode or sometimes, multiple. Kruger is definitely one of those. And, the aloofness, that look on his face when he's just like blankly staring, it's all fantastic. Even the giddiness, like in this episode, he like with the chair, doing his little chair trick and eating that chocolate cake. Not a moment is boring when watching Kruger. He is fantastic. Thank you so much, Greg. We always love your thoughts in your sack. And now it's time to close Greg's sack lunch. All right, my favorite Elaine moments. Well, no surprise. It's, yeah, that's right. You guys know what face I was making. That is my favorite moment of this episode. One of my favorite moments of the entire series. Like Greg said, it's so good. Close second, I love when she's like, yes, he is dumb. Yes, he is lazy. And then both of those lines, of course, dumb and lazy, I understand. All of that together, that is such a fantastic moment. My final notes for the episode. Puddy and Elaine are always magic. And this episode may be my favorite Puddy and Elaine plot. JLD gets so much comedy and the story heightens at a great pace. It's just, I love how much she's in this episode. I wouldn't have minded another scene, but it's all just done very well. The pacing's great. Everything kind of building up. And then we get the nice blow at the end of Father Curtis telling Puddy, hey, dude, like if you're going to pay attention to other parts of the Bible, why didn't you pay attention to the fact that you're living in sin, having sex before marriage, dumbass? The last few episodes have been relationship episodes for Elaine. We had the Green Lantern, Black or White Daryl, and now Puddy. But they're also different in their own way. There's a dilemma in each, of course. But this one, since we know Puddy already, it's an established character, an established boyfriend for Elaine, we can just kind of get right into the dilemma without having to introduce a new character. And I think that's why this works so well. We all know Puddy. We all love Puddy. Now he's religious. Let's get into it. And this is a very real issue I think every couple deals with at some point. Religion is one of the big ones. You can't ignore it. And if you aren't aligned with your religious beliefs, or at least okay with the other ones, maybe you're not the same religion, but you have to be familiar. I mean, that's a huge red flag if that's something that will come between you two. And once again, Seinfeld can do this. They tackle a relatable relationship situation that could be something that's very dramatic and presents it in such an entertaining and funny way. This is easily one of my top 10 Elaine episodes. Great plot, brilliantly written. Shout out Jennifer Crittenden again, and brilliantly acted. I touched on this with Greg Sack Lunch, but Kramer definitely has the next best plot for me. Always love Mickey with Kramer. It's my favorite pairing, which I just kind of mentioned. Kruger is always amazing, and so George's plot is funny because of him. And then Jerry's plot is meh, whatever. I thought the tractor gonorrhea tie-in was pretty weak, but whatever. I appreciated the attempt at dovetailing. Jennifer Crittenden's like, I'll just try and get this shit together. But to me, I'm like, all the callbacks, all the repeated lines, the fact that she brought back Arby's, just no notes, Jennifer Crittenden. Well, I guess I just had some notes, but I hope to write an episode of television at this level someday. Oh, I bow to you, Miss Crittenden. And I think that's all I can say about The Burning. Please be sure to follow Hot and Heavy on social media. On Instagram, it's at Hot Heavy Elaine. On TikTok, at Elaine Bennis Podcast. And if you'd like to email me, please do at elainepodcast@gmail.com. Thank you so much for listening. Only a few episodes left, and I will see you next time.